shutter clicks, and for one full second nobody in the room breathes. The family stands frozen in front of the living room window, smiling on command, and behind them, caught in the glass, a fourth shape stands exactly where no one is standing. The photographer lowers the camera. She counts the family again. There are 3. The case file lands on Agent Ethan Cole's desk before 9 in the morning, and Victoria Hayes is already reading over his shoulder before he finishes the first paragraph. A studio in a rural county 3 states from headquarters submitted a formal complaint after a client requested a refund, and then, days later, requested police assistance instead. The photograph shows the Whitfield family, a married couple and the wife's adult sister, taken inside their own home during what should have been an ordinary portrait session. Ethan calls it a lighting artifact before he has even opened the digital file. Victoria calls it something else entirely and reminds him that 4 separate technicians examined the raw image, and none of them could explain the fourth reflection. Ethan tells her that 4 confused technicians do not equal a haunting. Victoria tells him that the Whitfield family has already stopped answering their phone. They arrive at the Whitfield house late in the afternoon, and the first thing Victoria notices is the window itself, tall, original to the house, facing west, catching the low sun in a way that throws long reflections across the living room floor. The husband, Daniel Whitfield, answers the door pale and unshaven, and admits that his wife has not slept in the bedroom for 11 nights. He walks them through the portrait session exactly as it happened. 3 people, 1 photographer, 1 flash, 1 frame. He shows them the printed copy of the photograph, and Ethan studies the reflection closely, the 4th figure standing just behind, and to the left of the sister, tall, still, facing the camera directly while the family faces slightly to the side. Ethan's working theory forms quickly. Double exposure is the obvious answer, a flaw in the camera sensor, or a reflection bouncing off a mirror somewhere out of frame. He asks to see the room from the photographer's exact position, and Victoria watches him line up the shot again with his own phone, checking angles, checking the doorway behind them, checking every surface that could throw back a shape. He finds nothing that lines up. There is no mirror behind the photographer. There is no second window catching the flash. The angle of the 4th reflection does not match any object currently in the room, and it does not match the angle any of the 3 living subjects were standing at either. They interview the wife, Margaret Whitfield, separately in the kitchen, away from her husband. She speaks slowly, carefully, the way someone speaks when they are choosing every word to avoid saying the true one. She says the reflection looks like her mother. Her mother died in that same house 8 years earlier, in the room that is now the living room, back when it still served as a bedroom. Margaret says she has felt watched since the day they moved the furniture around last spring, since the day the window stopped being covered by the old bookshelf that used to block it entirely. Victoria asks the obvious question: why cover a window with a bookshelf in the first place? Margaret does not answer directly. She says her mother asked for it years before she died, and never explained why, and that after she passed, nobody in the family wanted to be the one to move it. Ethan asks to speak with the photographer directly and drives out to the small studio on the edge of town where the session took place. The photographer, a woman named Carol Ann Pruitt, has run the business for over 20 years and insists she has never seen anything like this in her entire career. She walks Ethan through her process step by step, the single flash unit positioned to the right of the camera, the tripod locked in place, the window directly behind the family, and closed the entire time. She shows him the contact sheet from that day, 6 frames total, the family shifting slightly between each shot, and 5 of the 6 frames. The window shows nothing but ordinary daylight and the pale outline of bare trees outside. Only in the 6th frame, the one the family chose to print and frame, does the 4th figure appear, standing in precisely the same spot, unaffected by the movement of everyone else in the room. Carol Ann tells Ethan she burned the studio copy of that print 2 nights after the family collected theirs, because she could no longer stand to have it hanging in her back room. Back at the house, Victoria pulls at a different thread. She asks Daniel about the land itself, and he admits, almost reluctantly, that the house was built by his wife's grandfather on property purchased secondhand, with no clear record of what stood there before construction began. County Archives, When Victoria finally digs through them that evening, confirm as much and nothing more. A gap in the paper trail exactly where the earliest deed should be. It is not evidence of anything supernatural, and Ethan says so plainly, but it is the kind of gap that tends to sit at the center of every case the agency has ever failed to close cleanly. Ethan pulls property records that night and finds nothing that supports a haunting in any conventional sense. No prior deaths on record before Margaret's mother. No history of tragedy tied to the land. He builds a theory around grief and suggestion, arguing that Margaret unconsciously altered the print during a moment of stress, or that a local processing lab made an error that 4 employees are too embarrassed to admit to. It is a clean theory, and it explains almost everything, except for one detail he cannot get past. The negative from the original film camera, when Victoria finally locates it in the photographer's storage, still uncorrected, unedited, straight from the roll, still shows the 4th figure. There was never a digital file to manipulate. There was never a computer involved at all. That night, Ethan agrees to stay in the house, on the condition that they simply observe the window without disturbing anything. Victoria sets a single camera facing the glass, and they wait in the dark, the whole house silent except for the settling of old wood. Just after 2 in the morning, the temperature in the room drops sharply enough that Ethan can see his own breath, and the glass fogs from the inside, not the outside, in a pattern too even to be natural condensation. Through the fog, both agents watch a shape resolve in the reflection, standing exactly where the 4th figure stood in the photograph, facing them directly while nothing in the room behind them could account for it. The shape does not move toward them. It does not need to. It simply stands, patient, present, as though it has been standing there the entire time and the family only just noticed. Victoria steps toward the window and speaks to it directly, asking what it wants, asking whose mother it is. The fog clears instantly, all at once, and the reflection empties. Ethan checks the camera footage twice. The recording shows the fog forming and clearing exactly as they experienced it. It does not show a reflection at all. By morning, Margaret Whitfield has made a decision without consulting either agent. She tells them she is finally taking down the bookshelf that used to cover that same section of wall, the one that stood there before the window was even installed, and moving the family out of the house within the week regardless of what the report concludes. Ethan writes his final assessment carefully, citing environmental factors and unexplained thermal anomalies, while privately admitting to Victoria that he has no theory left that survives contact with the negative. The case is closed as unresolved. What remains unexplained is simpler than either agent wants to admit. Local records show the house was built on a foundation that predates any structure connected to Margaret's family, and no one, not Margaret, not her late mother, not any prior owner on record, has ever been able to say who built it first. 3 days later, Ethan's phone rings before sunrise, and a new file lands on his desk before he has even finished his coffee. The photograph inside shows a different family, a different house, and one figure standing perfectly still in a hallway mirror, already reaching toward the woman asleep on the couch in front of it.